Hello and welcome to Unit 6. We are taking a look today at Lesson 6. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So here are our objectives. And so what are we doing? We will make 2 studio projects, an abstract painting, which should be done at this point, and a mixed media project. That's the one we're focusing on right now. How are we doing this? By painting, photographing, and inserting images into a PowerPoint. And why are we doing this? To show our understanding of the modern times of art. So we are going to be working on lesson 6 through 10, this mixed media project here, the second part of unit 6. So what we're going to do here is today our goal is we're going to make some decisions about our project today. You're going to spend the day collecting some material and items that you need. Collect inspiration for the subject, that goes with the materials, and then set up your workspace or studio space to construct this project. Okay, so we really have to make the decision first. Are you going to do a collage project? Both of these projects are considered to be mixed media, which means you're going to use a combination of different materials. But are you going to do a collage that is mostly two-dimensional and flat? Or are you going to focus on more of an assemblage that's three-dimensional and make more of a sculpture? Okay, so those are your two kind of different directions. So we're going to talk a little bit and hopefully this will help you make a decision. So we studied in Modern Times unit, we studied George Baruch and we looked at his example here of still life. And when you look at still life here, it's very much a painting. However, we can kind of see where the collage idea might take place, where we have a variety of different textural backgrounds and different patterning and things like that, that really break up the space, that give this a sense of this collage feel, even though we know that this was a mixed media oil project. Okay, so lots of painting, but still other things involved. So some of these things are different patterns of paper, like decorative papers in the background. Wallpaper is a great example of something you can use for collage. Scrapbooking paper, wrapping paper, all those kinds of things. So you can see that kind of here in George Baruch's work. So you might be inspired by this piece. If we take a look at Robert Rauschenberg, his example here of a state duplicating images, you might be more drawn to magazine clippings or photographs. And you can kind of see how Rauschenberg drew inspiration from that. Now he used a silk screening technique to duplicate his images, but you could do the same thing with a copier and a computer and multiply and make multiple copies if you chose to do so. So that is a possibility. And when he did this, he not only duplicated them, but he manipulated them by making them smaller or larger and adjusting the color and tone through the printmaking process. You could still do that on the computer as well to get them printed out. Then once they're printed out, then you could glue them together, creating that collage style project. Maybe you're not into the collage idea. So maybe you were more inspired by Louise Nevelson with her assemblages of found objects. So finding some kind of box, like a shoebox, and putting other found objects in that, arranging them in a way that creates shape and texture in that overall piece. Maybe that's the direction you'd like to take this modernist project. And don't forget Christo and Jean Claude. Remember, both of these artists, Louise Nevelson and Christo, are non-representational, so there is no subject matter here. But with Christo and Jean Claude's work, they were really focused on the elements and principles of design. So thinking about things like color, movement, rhythm, space, shape, all of those things would be very important as you create your modernist sculpture. So continuing to think about those things, I just wanted to touch upon a couple of things as review. So when we think of modern and postmodern art, is really broken down into, several different things that were super important to this time period. So first off, the artwork is mostly abstract, so simplified, okay? Not highly detailed, does not have a resemblance of realism. A lot of the artwork was non-representational, where there is no specific subject, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of the artists were experimenting with the elements and principles of design and art, like Christo and Jean-Claude, where that becomes more important than what the artwork is about, or the concept or the subject of the piece. So when we look at abstract artists, we're looking at artists like Baruch, Picasso, and Rauschenberg, where the subjects are things like still lives or city scenes, some kind of topic. So if you're going to do a collage, you're going to need some kind of unifying theme. And it's not really intended to show subjects as they truly exist. So you might have a theme of flowers, and you come up with a whole bunch of different papers, wallpapers, magazine clippings of flowers, and then you place them in a way that makes them more interesting and is not necessarily the intended placement of flowers. Okay. Or maybe you want to go with the non-representational idea, Nevelson, Christo, and Jean-Claude. Remember, at this place, you're not going to reference the real world. There's no reference to the real world. You're creating something based on those art principles and art elements that is interesting to look at. So color, line, shape, texture, form, movement become far more important in creating light and shadow in the piece than the true focus or the subject of the piece. So again, I go back to this decision that you have to make. Are you going to do a collage, or are you going to do a sculpture? After you make those decisions, there in the OLS, you have these great mixed media collage instruction sheets like student guides, or the mixed media sculpture. So we're going to look at mixed media collage for a second. And I have a whole list of materials that you can try to collect. And that's your job today, is to collect materials for your collage. Magazines that you can tear and rip or cut pages out of, newspaper clippings. Paint is also really great for the collage. They can help to either paint the different papers or put the background in paint, but having some kind of acrylic paint could turn out to be really helpful in your collage process. Maybe you want to do a collage of photographs. So do you have a stack of personal photographs, or that you could cut apart and use and glue together? Scanned or printed images off of the internet are perfectly acceptable as well. So you may look things up and print them and then cut them apart and use them. If you want text in your composition, text can be tricky. So I always suggest that if you're going to do text or font, print it on the computer, cut it out, and use that in your composition rather than hand draw those text elements. Also, you can choose to get a lot of different font choices that way and draw some interest. You could also do a collage of, things that were important to you, ticket stubs from events that you've gone to, put those into your collage. Maybe fabric scraps from maybe an old t-shirt or something that you really love. You could, cut that up and use that as part of your artwork. Tissue paper from old gifts, or just colored tissue paper in general for this project would be kind of cool. Yarn, string, buttons, sequins, other small decorative items like those would be something you could incorporate into your collage. Doilies and wallpaper. I already mentioned wrapping paper is a great way to get some color in and patterning and design. How about some texture with sandpaper scraps? You can cut apart and put sandpaper into your collage. Foil, like aluminum foil, or if you have craft foils in different colors, you can use that too. And candy wrappers and canceled stamps off of envelopes and letters and things like that also prove to be interesting. Another one that just popped into my head would be like greeting cards. Cutting apart greeting cards to put it into your collage would be really interesting and helpful. So your job again is to find these materials. You may not have an idea of what you're going to do with them yet, but start collecting these materials up in the next 24 hours so that you have them, as we're going to start to assemble this collage in our next studio lesson. After you find some of these materials, remember you want to have some kind of subject or unifying theme throughout. So if you can come up with something that is within all of them, that would be helpful. So getting that concept kind of there. The idea of reference photos is more probably not as good of a term as I could have used there, but using this idea of a theme. And then work area, find a place to work. You might want to cover that place with newspaper or something so that you don't get glue and things on your work surface. It's really helpful to have this set up so that you can leave it set up for the remainder of this project. So at this point, we're going to talk about sculpture. So if you choose not to do the collage portion and you choose to do a sculpture, your list of materials might be slightly different. So acrylic paint is going to be on there again. And the most important thing I feel like in this list is a small empty box, a cereal box, macaroni and cheese box, shoe box, something that you can cut and be the housing for your sculpture. Remember, Louise Nevelson often did this in wooden crates and then put her pieces in those crates. So you're using that small box as kind of like your frame or your structure to build within. You could use some of that leftover clay and create images to then put into this box. Paper tubes like toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls, wrapping paper tubes. Often those tubes become helpful in something like this. Wood scraps, wood spools, wood clothespins, any little wood items that might be something that you can incorporate would be fun. Craft sticks. I've seen people use cardboard egg cartons as interesting textural elements to add into their assemblage sculptures. Paper cups, bowls, and plates, yarn. You can also go in plastic silverware and things like that. Yarn, string, button, sequins. Those are similar to our collage part. You can still use those here in a sculpture. You might want to have poster board or cardstock to create dividers or walls within your box, or levels or cutout shapes of that as well. So that might be helpful. Wooden skewers or dowels. So a wooden cylinder of some kind could be interesting in your sculpture. Corrugated cardboard. And you can also still incorporate things like magazines, wrapping paper, cork, and then interesting twigs. What if you pulled in elements from outdoors into your assemblage sculpture? So the list could go on and on and on for things. I've seen a lot of really cool assemblage sculptures made out of old computer parts, where people have taken apart old computers and they have processor boards, and they can use the components of that to build a sculpture. And that's pretty cool. So those might be something that you could put inside your assemblage sculpture. So again, finding subject matter, finding these things to get prepared is super important. And it's not a bad idea as well to have that unifying theme. So maybe like the idea of the computer parts, and you have all of these different computer parts that you put in, and they have some kind of connection. Louise Nevelson usually created her connections with the concept of wooden objects. Everything was wooden. No, whether it was a finished wooden piece or a scrap wooden piece, it fit together into her construction of her sculpture. And then find that last one, work area, got a little bit covered there, but work area, find a workspace that you can set up to work. I'm looking at that list real quick, and it doesn't say anything about glue. So having some glue or a glue gun or something like that is going to be super important to either the collage project or to the sculpture project, because you're going to need to assemble it in some way. So I have two different types of glue. I have white Elmer's glue, and I have a glue stick glue. The majority of my collage would be done with a glue stick, and the majority of my sculpture would be done with white glue. So just so you know, those are some things that would really be helpful in this project too. The acrylic paint for the sculpture is going to be important because that's going to help unify all of these random objects and pull them together with one color, very much like Nevelson did as well. So that brings us back here to our goal today. So you have the decision to make. Are you going to do a collage or a sculpture? Collect up all your materials and things that you might need to build and construct your project, and then really set up that workspace. Okay, remember that third item. It would be helpful to have some kind of unifying theme. The unifying theme in your sculpture could even be that color, like Nevelson painted everything black. Okay. on top of everything being wood. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of where we're at right now. So take the rest of today after you finish this video to start completing those steps in our daily goal. If you have any concerns or questions, do feel free to reach out to me through email and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Good luck in starting to gather and plan out what you might think that you're going to do here for your Modernist Studio project, Unit 6, Lesson 6.